The little girl tugged the sleeve of the most dangerous man in Seoul. "Please sir, my mommy has never had a Valentine before." The Mafia boss almost pushed her away. He had places to be. Men waiting on his word. A meeting in 20 minutes that 3 different people had told him could not be rescheduled. He did not have time for lost children and their problems, and he especially did not have time on a Thursday morning on a public street where anyone could see him being soft. He was already pulling his sleeve back. Already nodding at Wu, his head of security, to handle it. Already turning away. And then he saw the necklace. His hand froze in midair. It was a thin gold chain, delicate and small, clearly resized to fit a child's neck, but the pendant. The pendant was what stopped the blood in his veins. A tiny crescent moon with a single stone set at its curve. Not a diamond. Not anything expensive. A pale green peridot, the color of sea glass, the color of early morning. An unusual choice. A very specific choice. The kind of thing a man picks not because it is impressive but because it means something. Because the woman he is buying it for once said, offhandedly, that she thought peridot was the most underrated stone in the world and nobody ever chose it and she never understood why. He had stood in that jewelry shop in Insadong for 40 minutes choosing it. He had placed it around Abina's neck himself, on a night in early spring, 10 years ago, when the world was still something he believed he could be good inside of. There was only one of that necklace in existence. He had never told anyone about it. Not a soul. It was the kind of private thing that lives in the locked room of a man who has mostly demolished every other soft thing about himself, small, protected, untouched. And it was hanging around the neck of a child who could not have been older than 7 or 8, who was standing on a Seoul sidewalk in a puffy pink coat, looking up at him with eyes so familiar they made his chest hurt in a way that had no clean medical explanation. He crouched down slowly. His bodyguards exchanged a look. In 10 years of service not one of them had seen Park Junho crouch down for anything. "Where did you get that necklace?" he asked. His voice was low. Controlled. But his eyes were doing something they were not supposed to do in public. The little girl looked down at the pendant, touched it briefly with 2 fingers the way children touch things they consider precious, and looked back up at him. "My mommy gave it to me," she said. "She said it was the most important thing she owned. She said I could wear it when I was old enough not to lose it." A small pause. "I am old enough now. I haven't lost it." He stared at her. At the shape of her face. At the brown eyes that were somehow both Abina's warmth and something else, something angular and sharp that he recognized from photographs of himself as a child that his mother used to keep on the mantelpiece. At the small birthmark below her left ear. At the way she was looking at him, direct, unafraid, with the particular fearless patience of someone who has already decided that she is not leaving without what she came for. "What is your name?" he asked. "Amara," she said. "Amara Osei. I'm 7 3/4. She tilted her head slightly to the left, chin up. He had to close his eyes for half a second. He did that. That exact gesture. His own mother had teased him about it his entire childhood. "I came here because my mommy has never had a Valentine and I think it's time she had one. I picked you because you look like you need one too." Someone behind him made a sound. He did not turn around. "You picked me," he repeated. "I've seen you before," Amara said simply. "At the park. You sit by yourself and you look like you're thinking about something sad. My mommy looks like that sometimes too. I thought maybe you were thinking about the same thing." The street continued around them. Seoul in the morning, indifferent and relentless, all noise and motion and purpose. None of it reached him. He was somewhere else entirely, a small apartment in Mapogu, 10 years ago, spring light coming through thin curtains, Abina laughing at something he'd said, the necklace catching the light at her throat, everything simple and possible and not yet ruined. "Where is your mother right now?" he asked. "At work. She's a medical interpreter. She doesn't know I'm here." Amara reached into her coat pocket and produced a handmade card, pink paper, red crayon, the letters slightly uneven but full of absolute conviction. She held it out to him with both hands, the way you present something you worked hard on to someone you need to take it seriously. I made this for you to give to her. You just have to sign your name at the bottom. I left space. He took the card. He opened it. Inside was a drawing: a tall man in a long coat, a woman with enormous natural hair, and a small girl with braids, all three of them holding hands under what appeared to be a large yellow sun. The sun had a smiley face. Below the drawing, in careful printed English, Amara had written, "Every family starts with someone being brave enough to say hello. I am being brave. The rest is up to you." Park Junho, commander of the Champa Syndicate, a man who had stared down enemies and walked away from burning buildings and built an empire out of nothing but nerve and ruthlessness, sat with a child's crayon drawing in his hands and felt something move in his chest that he had no vocabulary for anymore. He had not let himself think about Abina in years. He had been extremely disciplined about it. When her face appeared in the uninvited way that faces do, in the half-second before sleep, in the particular quality of certain kinds of afternoon light, he had learned to close the door on it quickly and completely. He had made a choice. He had stood in that hotel room 8 years ago, watching her sleep, and he had made the only choice a man in his position could make for a woman like her. He had left. He had not contacted her. He had not looked for her. He had decided that the most loving thing he could do was disappear so completely that she would have no choice but to build something new. He had never once considered that she might already have been carrying something of his when he walked out that door. He looked at Amara. She was watching him with those eyes, patient, steady, already somehow knowing she had him. "This drawing," he said carefully. "The man in the coat. Is that supposed to be me?" "It's supposed to be whoever says yes," Amara said. "But I drew the coat long because yours is long. So?" She shrugged with the particular confidence of someone who considers this matter settled. He almost smiled. He stopped it. But it was close. "Amara." He said her name slowly, tasting it. It meant grace. He knew that. He had looked it up once, late at night years ago, when he was in a dark place and thinking about things he did not permit himself to think about in daylight. He had imagined, briefly, against his own rules, what it would have been like if things had been different. If he had been different. He had thought about names. He had thought about that, just once, and then locked the door and never gone back. "Yes," she said. "Does your mother know you make a habit of approaching strangers?" Amara considered this with great seriousness. "You're not a stranger," she said. "I've been watching you at the park for 3 Sundays. I did research." She paused. "My friend Gion's brother said you were dangerous. I looked up what that meant in terms of jobs and I decided it meant you were probably very responsible because dangerous people have to pay attention to everything." She nodded firmly. "My mother needs someone who pays attention." Behind him, Wu had turned fully away. His shoulders were shaking. Junho looked down at the card in his hand. At the necklace at her throat. At this child who had walked past armed men with a crayon drawing and the absolute certainty of someone who does not yet know that the world is supposed to be harder than this. "What if I told you," he said quietly, "that I might already know your mother?" Amara blinked. This was clearly not a variable she had included in her plan. For the first time since she had appeared beside him, something flickered in her expression, not fear, but recalibration. The look of a very smart person rapidly updating their model of a situation. "You know her," she said. "I knew her," he said. "A long time ago." Amara was quiet for a moment. Then, with the devastating logical simplicity of a 7-year-old who has not yet learned to overcomplicate things, she said, "Then it should be easy for you to say yes." He stood up. He folded the card once, carefully, and placed it in the inside pocket of his coat. Against his chest. He looked down at her, the small, impossible, extraordinary child who might be, who he was almost certain was. "What is your mother's phone number?" he asked. Amara beamed. She reached back into her pocket and produced a second piece of paper, already prepared, as if she had known all along this was how the conversation would end. The number was written in red crayon. There was a small star next to it and below the number, one final note in her careful handwriting: "Please don't wait too long. Valentine's Day is in 6 days. P.S. She likes peonies, not roses. Roses are too expected." He took the paper. He looked at it for a long moment. Then he looked at Amara one more time, at the necklace, at the birthmark, at those eyes that were asking him something much larger than she knew, and said, "Go straight home." "I will," she said. Then she turned, waved at him over her shoulder without looking back, stepped neatly around Wu as if he were a piece of furniture, and walked away down the street, her braids bouncing, completely unbothered, as if she had simply completed an errand. Wu appeared at his shoulder. Neither of them spoke for a moment. "Sir," Wu finally said. "I know," Junho said. "Should I find out everything? Where she lives? Where she works? How long she has been there?" He paused. "And Wu, you see that child?" "Yes, sir." "Nothing happens to her. Nothing happens to either of them. You understand what I am telling you?" "Yes, sir," Wu said, and his voice was different now. Quieter. He understood perfectly. Junho stood alone on the street for a moment longer, one hand pressed flat against his coat, against the pocket where the card was, feeling the faint crinkle of pink paper beneath the fabric. Somewhere across the city, Abina Osei was at work, interpreting someone else's pain into language that could be understood, completely unaware that her daughter had just walked into the most dangerous orbit in Seoul and walked back out with a Valentine. Completely unaware that the man she had spent 8 years learning to stop loving had just held a picture of their family in his hands. Completely unaware that the past had found a way back. It always does. Tell me you are breathing right now. Tell me. Drop a comment with the fire emoji if this story already has your whole heart, because we are just getting started. Subscribe to Afro-Korean Love Tales right now if you are not already here, because what happens next will break you open in the best possible way. Abina Osei had a system for surviving hard days. It was not complicated. It was not the kind of system that required journaling or therapy or long conversations with girlfriends over wine, though she had nothing against any of those things. It was simpler than that. When a day was hard, and in her line of work, hard days came with the regularity of weather, she would stop at the small flower stall outside Mapo Station on her way home, buy whatever was cheapest and brightest, put them in the blue ceramic vase on the kitchen windowsill, and stand there for exactly 1 minute looking at them before she did anything else. 1 minute of something beautiful before the evening began. That was the whole system. It sounds small. It was not small. It was the kind of discipline that keeps a person standing when standing is difficult. She had been standing for a long time. She was 34 now, and she was, by any honest measure, remarkable. Not in the loud way. In the quiet, load-bearing way that people who have built their lives without a safety net tend to be remarkable, competent and warm and funny in that dry, precise manner that catches people off guard, with a laugh that arrived suddenly and fully and made everyone in earshot feel like they had won something. She had built a good life in Seoul. A real one. She had her work, which she was excellent at, and her apartment, which she had made beautiful on a careful budget, and her Sunday mornings in the park with Amara, and her friendships, a small, solid collection of people who knew her properly and showed up when it mattered. She had her mother back in Accra on video call every Saturday morning. She had her faith, quiet and personal and not performed for anyone. She had Amara, who was the whole sun of her life, around whom everything else orbited. She had chosen, 8 years ago, after the grief of Park Junho's disappearance had moved through her like a season and finally passed, to decide that this was enough. That a full life did not require a partner at its center. That love was not a destination she had missed but a thing she was already living, in smaller denominations, every single day. She had made peace with it. Most days she meant it. On the days she did not quite mean it, the window days, the quiet evenings when Amara was asleep and the apartment was warm and still and something in her chest pulled toward an absence she could not name out loud, she bought flowers and stood in front of them for 1 minute and then she moved on. She was good at moving on. She had learned it the hard way and now she was very good at it. She did not know, on this particular Thursday evening, as she came through the door with a bunch of yellow chrysanthemums in her workbag and the specific tiredness of someone who had spent 9 hours being emotionally present for strangers, that her 7-year-old daughter had spent the morning rearranging the entire future. "Amara," she called, setting her bag down. "In here." Amara's voice came from the kitchen, bright and completely normal, betraying nothing. She was sitting at the kitchen table doing her homework with the focused expression of a child who was being very deliberate about looking innocent. Abina looked at her for a moment. Something was different. She couldn't place it. How was school? Good, Amara said. We learned about the water cycle. Did you know that the water we drink is the same water the dinosaurs drank? It just keeps going around. I did know that, Abina said, filling the vase. It's one of my favorite facts. Mine too, Amara said. Then, carefully, eyes still on her homework, Mommy. Do you think things that disappear always come back? Like the water? Abina placed the chrysanthemums in the vase. She stood looking at them. 1 minute. Sometimes, she said. Not always. Why? Just the water cycle, Amara said simply. Just thinking about it. Abina looked at her daughter for a moment longer at the too casual posture, the slightly overdone focus on the homework page, and decided to file it away for later. Amara was a thinker. She processed things in spirals and came back to them when she was ready. It was one of the things Abina loved most about her and occasionally found most exhausting. She did not notice, when she hugged Amara goodnight 3 hours later, that the peridot necklace was back in its box on Amara's dresser, replaced carefully, the clasp done up neatly. She did not notice that Amara had been watching her face all evening with the particular attention of someone waiting for something to begin. She noticed none of it. She would understand it all very soon. The message came on Friday morning. Abina was on her commute, standing in the subway car, half reading the news on her phone, when an unknown number sent a single text. It said, I received your daughter's card. She is extraordinary. You should know that. I am sorry for the manner of this contact. I did not know how else to begin. J. She read it 3 times. Then she read it again. Her first thought was confusion. Her second thought was that it was spam of an unusually personal variety. Her third thought arrived slower, heavier, carried up from somewhere deep and carefully sealed, because there was something about the cadence of those sentences, the formality of them, the particular way they were constructed, apologetic and precise and restrained in a way that was less like coldness and more like someone being very careful not to take up too much space, that made the hair on her arms stand up. She typed back, I'm sorry, who is this? The reply came immediately, as if he had been waiting with his phone in his hand, someone who owes you more than an explanation. But an explanation is where I would like to start, if you will allow it. Abina sat down on a subway seat that had just opened up, which was lucky, because her legs had decided to be unreliable. She stared at the screen. She told herself it was not him. It was not possible that it was him. Seoul was a city of 10 million people and her daughter was 7 years old, and whatever this was, it was not that. She typed, what card? What daughter? His response took slightly longer this time. Then, a pink card with a crayon drawing. 3 figures holding hands. She left me her number, your number written in red crayon with a star next to it. She also told me you prefer peonies to roses, and that roses are too expected. I have been thinking about that since yesterday. It sounds exactly right. The subway car filled and emptied around her. She did not move. Only one person on earth knew she preferred peonies. She had said it once, offhandedly, on a Sunday morning at a flower market in Hongdae, 10 years ago, laughing at the extravagance of roses. She had said it to a man standing beside her who had listened to everything she said with the full weight of his attention, as if every small thing she thought or felt or preferred was information worth keeping. She had not said it to anyone since. It was too specific. Too private. Too connected to a morning she had spent years wrapping in enough distance to make it bearable. Her hands were not steady. She stood up as her stop arrived, moved through the doors automatically, climbed the stairs into the cold morning air of the city, and stood on the pavement outside the hospital where she worked and typed one word. Jun-ho? The reply was immediate this time. One word. Yes. She did not respond for 3 hours. He did not push. He did not send a follow-up message or a question or an explanation she hadn't asked for yet. He simply waited, which was either the most respectful thing he could have done or the most strategic, and with him she had never been fully certain where those two things separated. She went through her morning on autopilot, 3 consecutive interpretation sessions, a staff meeting, a difficult oncology consultation that required every scrap of her professional focus, and she did it all with his name sitting in her chest like a stone dropped into still water, sending out rings she could not stop. At lunchtime she sat in the hospital canteen with a cup of tea she didn't drink and thought about what she was going to do. She thought about Amara. About the question last night, do things that disappear always come back, like the water? She thought about the necklace she had put on her daughter's neck 3 months ago because Amara had asked about it, had held the pendant in her small fingers and said, "It's the prettiest thing you own, Mommy. Why don't you wear it?" And Abina had said, "It's yours now. You keep it safe." She had not explained why it was too heavy for her own neck to carry anymore. She thought about what it meant that her daughter had found him, had approached him, had handed him a crayon drawing of a family. She thought about what it meant that he had kept her number for a full day before texting. That he had not led with excuses or explanations or the performance of remorse. That his first message had been about Amara. That he had said she is extraordinary before he had said anything about himself. She picked up her phone. She typed, "Why did you leave?" She stared at it for a long moment. Then she sent it. His reply came after 4 minutes. She counted. 4 minutes and then, "Because I was afraid of what I was becoming and I did not want to become it in front of you. Because you were the best thing in my life and I did not trust myself to deserve you. Because I thought disappearing was the same as protecting you." She paused. Then, "I know now that I was wrong. I have known it for a long time. I did not know how to come back from something like that. I still don't. But your daughter apparently does." Abina read it twice. 3 times. Her tea was completely cold. She thought about the 8 years. About the nights she had cried with a thoroughness and privacy she had never shown anyone, not her mother, not her friends, letting herself grieve fully and completely before she put it away and kept going. About the pregnancy she had discovered 6 weeks after he disappeared, sitting on the cold bathroom floor of this city with a test in her shaking hands, making the decision alone that she was going to be enough. That she was going to be everything. That this baby was not a tragedy but a gift, delivered in the wreckage of something that had not survived, and she was going to treat it that way. She had. She had treated Amara like a gift every single day for 7 years. She did not regret a moment of it. She would not change it. But there was a question she had never allowed herself to stop carrying, small and persistent, the way a pebble in a shoe is small and persistent. What would she do if he came back? Who would she be in that moment? Would she be the woman who had built something solid and good and self-sufficient and did not need this reopened? Or would she be the woman who had stood at a flower market in Hongdae once, laughing about peonies, certain that she had found the person she was going to spend her life with? She suspected she was both. She suspected that was the problem. She typed, "There is something you need to know, Junho. Something I should have found a way to tell you a long time ago, even when I didn't know how to reach you. Something that changes the nature of this conversation entirely." She stared at what she had written. Her heart was loud. Then she typed, "Amara is your daughter." She put the phone face down on the table. She picked up her cold tea. She waited. Comment the word peonies right now if this story is already doing things to your chest that you were not prepared for. And if you are watching this on Afro-Korean Love Tales for the first time, subscribe immediately because you have no idea what Junho does in the next 60 seconds after reading that message, and it will absolutely destroy you. Park Junho read the message 4 times. Then he set his phone down on his desk, very carefully, the way you set down something that has just become unexpectedly fragile, and he sat completely still in his chair for a long time. His office was on the 14th floor of a building in Gangnam that officially housed a private equity firm. It was a beautiful office, floor-to-ceiling windows, clean lines, the kind of deliberate minimalism that costs a great deal of money to achieve. From his chair he could see a wide slice of Seoul spread out below him, gray and silver and endlessly busy, a city that had no interest in anyone's private devastation. He had sat in this chair and received news that would make most men collapse. He had made decisions in this room that altered the trajectories of businesses, of neighborhoods, of people's entire lives. He had never once, in this room or any other, felt like the walls were too close. He felt it now. Amara is your daughter. He stood up. Walked to the window. Stood there with one hand pressed flat against the glass and looked at the city below and did the mathematics he should have done the moment he saw her. 7 years and 3/4. He had left in February. She had said Amara was born in Incheon. He thought about Abina's face the last time he had seen it, sleeping, unaware, peaceful in the way people are peaceful before they know what is coming, and he thought about what she had been carrying when she woke up and found him gone. What she had been carrying alone for 8 years. His jaw tightened until it ached. He was not a man who cried. He had dismantled that capacity deliberately, over years, because in his world emotion was a liability that people would find and use against you. He had been very thorough about it. He had thought the demolition was complete. He discovered, standing at that window, that he had not been as thorough as he believed. He pressed his forehead against the cold glass. He thought about Amara walking up to him on that street. The pink coat. The red bean bun. The card held out in both hands. The way she had looked at him, direct and unafraid and full of a confidence so complete it had no idea yet that the world could diminish it. He thought about her saying, "You look like you're thinking about something sad. I thought maybe you were thinking about the same thing." She had been right. She had been so precisely, impossibly right. He thought about 7 years of Sunday mornings he had not been there for. 7 years of first words and first steps and first days of school and fevers and nightmares and the 1,000 daily unremarkable moments that are, in fact, the entire substance of a life. 7 years of Abina doing it alone, buying flowers on hard days and leaving notes beside dinner bowls and building something whole and beautiful out of what he had left her with when he walked out that door. He turned from the window. He picked up his phone. He typed, "I am coming to find you. Not to overwhelm you. Not to demand anything. Just to see you. Just to stand in front of you and say what I should have said 8 years ago. Tell me where you are and I will come now, or I will come whenever you are ready. I will wait as long as you need. But Abina, I am not disappearing again. Not from you. Not from her. Never again." He sent it. Then he sat back down in his chair, put his elbows on his desk, put his face in his hands, and gave himself exactly 5 minutes to feel the full weight of everything he had lost and everything that might still, if she allowed it, be found. 5 minutes. He had always believed in time limits on falling apart. After that you got back up. He got back up. Abina read his message standing outside the hospital in the cold, her coat not quite buttoned, her breath making small clouds in the February air. She read it 3 times. She thought about all the reasons to say no. They were substantial, organized, and had been living in her chest for 8 years. She knew them by heart. He had left without a word, without a note, without the basic human decency of an explanation. He had left her pregnant and alone in a city that was not her birthplace, to build a life from the ground up with no partner and no safety net and nothing but her own determination and the small ferocious love she had for the baby growing inside her. He had missed everything. He had not been there for any of it. Those were not small things. Those were not things you smoothed over with a well-worded text message and a peony preference remembered from 10 years ago. She knew all of this. She also knew, because she was honest with herself in the way that people who have done real inner work are honest with themselves, that she had never fully closed the door on him. She had reduced it to a crack. She had moved furniture in front of it. She had built an entire life that did not require what was on the other side of it. But she had never, in 8 years, fully closed it. And now her 7-year-old daughter, her brilliant, fearless, infuriating, extraordinary daughter, had walked up to him on a public street and blown the door off its hinges with a crayon drawing and a red bean bun. She almost laughed. She pressed her free hand over her mouth. She typed, "I finish work at 6. There is a cafe called BOM on the corner of World Caparo and Dongdioro. I will be there at 6:30. I am not promising you anything, Junho. I am just having coffee." She paused before sending it. Then she added, "Bring nothing. No flowers. No gestures. Just yourself. That is what I need to look at." She sent it and went back inside to finish her shift. She told no one. Not her friend Suyun, who worked at the same hospital and knew everything. Not her mother, who would either cry with happiness or cry with alarm, and she did not have the bandwidth for either. She collected Amara from the after-school program at 5:30, dropped her with Suyun under the excuse of a work errand, and took the bus to Boeum Cafe alone, arriving 7 minutes early and choosing a table in the corner where she could see the door. She ordered a chamomile tea. Her hands were steady. She was proud of her hands. She saw him before he saw her. He came through the door at exactly 6:30, not a minute early, not a minute late, as if he had been standing outside waiting for the precise moment so as not to crowd her. He had not worn the long coat. He was in something simpler. Dark trousers, a plain gray jacket, nothing that announced anything. He had his hands in his pockets and he was looking around the cafe with an expression she recognized even across 10 years in a room full of strangers, that particular careful stillness of a man who was trying very hard to hold himself together in public. He saw her. He went very still. She did not smile. Not yet. She was not ready to give him a smile yet. She simply held his gaze from across the room and let him walk toward her, and when he reached the table and stood there looking at her, she said, quietly, "Sit down." He sat. For a moment neither of them spoke. The cafe moved around them, the sound of the espresso machine, low music, other people's conversations. She looked at him properly for the first time in 10 years. He was older. The angles of his face were sharper. There were things in his eyes that had not been there before, a heaviness, a depth, the residue of a decade of living in ways she would probably never fully know. He was looking at her the way you look at something you thought was gone and have just discovered is still real. "You look the same," he said. "I'm not," she said. "No," he said. "I know." "I meant," he stopped. Exhaled. "I don't know what I meant. I'm sorry. I had a speech prepared and I've completely lost it." Something shifted very slightly in her chest. "Not much. A millimeter." "Then don't give a speech," she said. "Just talk to me." He looked at the table for a moment. Then he looked back up at her. "I left because I was afraid," he said. "Not of you. Of myself. Of what I was and what I was becoming and what it would cost you to be in proximity to it. I thought," he stopped again. "I thought the most loving thing I could do was remove myself. I thought I was making a sacrifice. I understand now that I was making an excuse." Abina said nothing. She wrapped both hands around her tea. "I had no right to make that decision for you," he said. "You were not a fragile thing that needed protecting from the truth. You were a person who deserved to be consulted. I took your choice away from you. I have known that for a long time and I did not know how to find my way back to saying it to your face." He paused. "I am saying it to your face now." The espresso machine hissed. Someone laughed at a nearby table. "She looks like you," Abina said quietly. "Around the eyes. And the way she tilts her head." She looked at him steadily. "I used to find it difficult. Looking at her and seeing you. But she made it easy because she is so completely herself that eventually that's all I saw. Just Amara." His throat moved. "She is the best thing in my life," Abina said. "I want to be very clear about that. Whatever this is, whatever happens from this conversation forward, she is not a bridge between us. She is not a reason or a bargaining chip or a plot point. She is a child. My child. And if you are going to be in any proximity to her life, it will be because you have earned that right slowly and carefully and on her terms, not yours." "Yes," he said. No hesitation. No qualification. Just yes. "I mean it," she said. "I know you mean it," he said. "I am agreeing with you completely." She looked at him for a long moment. "She walked up to you," she said. It was not quite a question. "She walked past 3 armed men and tapped my arm," he said. "She told me you had never had a Valentine and she thought it was time you had one. She had prepared materials." He paused. "She is extraordinary, Abina." "I know," Abina said softly. And something in her voice when she said it, the fullness of it, the quiet overwhelming love, made him look down briefly at the table. As if the directness of it was more than he could take head on. I want to meet her, he said. Properly. He stopped. Restarted. I want to learn how to deserve that. I understand it is not given. I am not asking for it today. I am just telling you that it is what I want, so that you know where I am standing. Abina was quiet for a moment. Outside the cafe window, Seoul was doing its evening thing, lights coming on across the city, people heading home, the sky going from gray to the particular deep blue of a winter night. She had looked at this city for years from various windows, sometimes with joy and sometimes with longing and sometimes with the steady neutral acceptance of a person who has made peace with their life. She looked at it now and felt something different. Something that had no clean name yet. Something like a door, in the process of opening. She was not going to rush it. But she was not going to close it either. It's Valentine's Day on Sunday, she said finally. I know, he said. My daughter went to considerable effort, she said. It would be a shame to waste it. The corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile. The same almost smile she had seen on Amara's face that morning when she thought Abina wasn't looking. The family resemblance, landing quietly in the middle of a cafe table, undeniable as breathing. Are you asking me to be your Valentine? He said. I'm asking you to have dinner with us on Sunday, she said. Me and Amara. Somewhere simple. Somewhere public. 2 hours, no more. And Junho, she held his gaze. Do not make her a promise you cannot keep. She has been kept by everything I have built for her. If you break something in her, I will not forgive it. I understand, he said. Good, she said. She picked up her tea. Now tell me what you have actually been doing for 10 years, and do not leave anything out. I want the truth. All of it. I am a medical interpreter. I have held harder things than the truth. And for the first time since he had walked through that door, Park Junho almost smiled. Fully. The way a person smiles when they have been in the cold for a very long time and have just come inside. He started talking. She listened. Outside, Seoul glittered in the dark, indifferent as always, but somehow, tonight, also beautiful. Comment dinner for 3 if you felt every single word of that cafe scene because the way she held her ground while her heart was breaking open is everything. Subscribe to Afro-Korean Love Tales if you are not already family because the final batch is where everything comes home, and you are not ready for what Amara does when she walks into that restaurant on Sunday. Amara wore her best dress on Sunday. It was yellow, the color she always chose when something important was happening, because she had decided at age 5 that yellow was the color of things going right. She had matching yellow barrettes in her braids and her good shoes, and she had, without being asked, cleaned her room completely on Saturday night, as if the general state of the universe required her personal areas to also be in order. Abina watched her daughter get ready with a feeling she could not fully contain. She had told Amara on Saturday morning, sitting across from her at the kitchen table with 2 cups of hot chocolate between them, that a friend was joining them for Valentine's Day dinner. She had been careful with her words. Deliberate. A friend. Someone mommy knew a long time ago. Amara had looked at her with those eyes, those steady, ancient, knowing eyes, and said, "Is it him?" Abina had gone very still. "What do you mean?" "The man from the park," Amara said simply. "The one I gave the card to." "Is it him?" There was no point pretending otherwise. You could not perform innocence for a child who had already moved several pieces across the board while you were not looking. "Yes," Abina said. "It is him." Amara had nodded slowly, with the solemn satisfaction of someone whose calculations had proven correct. Then she picked up her hot chocolate, took a long sip, and said, "I thought so." He had sad eyes, but they were kind underneath. "You can always tell." Abina had reached across the table and held her daughter's face in both hands and looked at her for a long moment. "My love," she said. "There is something else I need to tell you. Something big. And I need you to listen with your whole heart, okay?" Amara had put her cup down. "The man from the park," Abina said carefully, "is not just a friend. He knew me before you were born. He is the reason you exist. She paused. He is your father, Amara. The kitchen was very quiet. Amara did not cry. She did not shout. She did not do any of the things that a 7-year-old might be expected to do upon receiving information of this magnitude. She sat with it for a moment, visibly processing, her small face moving through something complex and interior, and then she said, I know. Abina blinked. You know? The birthmark, Amara said. She touched the spot below her left ear. You always said it was our family's special mark. But when I got close to him on the street, I saw he had one too. In the same place. She looked at her mother with clear, calm eyes. I did the math. Abina stared at her daughter for a very long time. Then she laughed. She laughed until her eyes were wet, pressing her hand over her mouth, shaking with it, because what else do you do when your 7-year-old turns out to have been 17 steps ahead of you the entire time? Amara Nadia Ose, she said finally, her voice unsteady with love, you are the most remarkable person I have ever known. Amara smiled. The gap-toothed, sun-at-noon smile. I know, she said again. Then, more quietly, more carefully, in the voice she used when she was being truly serious, is he good, mommy? Underneath? Abina thought about a cafe on Donguioaro. About 2 hours that became 4 because neither of them noticed the time passing. About the truth he had told her, all of it, without softening or performing, about who he was and what he did and what he was trying, slowly and with great difficulty, to become. About the way he had listened when she spoke. About the way he had said I am not disappearing again with the particular gravity of a man who understood exactly the weight of what he was promising. I think he is trying very hard to be, she said. And I think that counts for something. Amara nodded. She picked up her hot chocolate. Then I'll give him a chance, she said, in a tone that made it abundantly clear that the chance was hers to give and she was aware of that. Abina had pressed her lips together to keep the smile manageable. The restaurant was called Hanji. It was simple and warm, tucked into a quiet street in Mapogu, the kind of place that had good food and no pretension and candles on the tables that had been worn down to comfortable stubs. Abina had chosen it deliberately. Nothing impressive. Nothing that announced anything. Just a real place where real things could happen. She and Amara arrived first. Amara sat across from her mother and arranged her cutlery with great precision and looked at the door with the focused energy of someone preparing for something significant. He walked in at exactly 7. He had worn simple clothes again, dark, clean, nothing that performed wealth or power. He was carrying one thing. A small pot of white peonies, compact and unpretentious, not the extravagant florist arrangement but the kind you find at a good market if you know what you are looking for. He held them a little uncertainly, as if he was aware they might be too much or not enough and had not fully resolved the question. Amara saw them first. She looked at the peonies, then at her mother, then back at the peonies, and her expression was the specific expression of someone watching their own plan execute correctly. He reached the table. He looked at Abina first, just for a moment, a look that carried everything and asked nothing. Then he looked at Amara. They regarded each other. It was Amara who spoke first, because of course it was. You came, she said. I came, he said. I wasn't sure you would, she said. I told your mother I would, he said. I keep my word. Amara considered this. That's the most important thing, she said seriously. My mom says people who keep their word are the rarest kind of people. He glanced at Abina. She raised an eyebrow fractionally. He set the peonies on the table and sat down. They're white, Amara observed, studying the flowers. Your mother said no roses, he said. I thought white peonies meant something like a beginning. Something clean. He paused. I wasn't sure if that was right. Amara looked at her mother. Abina was looking at the flowers with an expression she was working very hard to keep neutral. It's right, Amara said on her behalf, with the authority of someone who has decided to be helpful. She likes them. I can tell. Abina looked up. I'm capable of speaking for myself, she said. I know, Amara said cheerfully. I was just moving things along. Junho made a sound that was, unmistakably, a laugh. A real one. Short and surprised, as if it escaped before he could decide whether to allow it. He pressed his hand briefly over his mouth. Abina looked at him. He looked at her. Something warm moved between them across the table, quick and private, there and gone. The evening unfolded. It was not dramatic. It was not a grand romantic gesture or a cinematic reconciliation. It was a dinner. A real one. Amara ordered the bibimbap and ate it methodically and asked Junho 47 questions, which Abina counted because she could not help herself. She asked him what his favorite color was and whether he had ever broken a bone and what he thought happened after you died and whether he believed in fate and what his mother was like and whether he had any pets and what he was afraid of. He answered every single question. Without deflecting. Without performing. With the careful honesty of a man who understood that he was being evaluated by a 7-year-old and that this evaluation mattered more than any other he had ever faced. When Amara asked what he was afraid of, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, leaving people who need me to stay. That is what I am most afraid of now. Amara looked at him for a long time. Then she looked at her mother. Then she picked up her spoon and went back to her bibimbap and said, okay, in the tone of someone marking something off a list. Abina met Junho's eyes over their daughter's head. He looked like a man standing in a place he had never expected to be allowed to stand, trying to hold still so as not to break it. She looked like a woman deciding, slowly and with full awareness of the cost and the risk and the enormity of it, to set something heavy down. After dinner, Amara announced she needed to use the bathroom and disappeared, leaving them alone at the table with the melted candle stubs and the white peonies and the comfortable wreckage of a meal that had gone well. She interrogated you, Abina said. She was thorough, he agreed. She does that when she's deciding whether to trust someone, Abina said. She asks questions until she has enough data. And what does she do when she has enough data? Abina looked toward the back of the restaurant where Amara had gone. She decides, she said simply. And once she decides, she doesn't go back on it. She is very sure of herself. A pause. I don't know where she gets it. He smiled at that. The full smile this time, the one she had seen beginning to form in the cafe and had waited, without admitting she was waiting, to see complete. It was a good smile. She had forgotten how good it was. She had, in fact, forbidden herself from remembering. Abina, he said. I know this is Sunday dinner in 2 hours and no promises beyond this table, he said. I know I have a very long way to go. I know what I am asking you to consider is not small and the reasons you have not to consider it are not small either. He looked at her steadily. But I want to be here. Not in the visitor sense. In the, I want to learn your schedule and know which flowers to buy on which days and be the person you call when something at work breaks your heart. I want to know what Amara is afraid of and what makes her laugh and what she is going to be when she grows up. I want to sit at this table again. And again after that. His voice was even but his eyes were not. I am telling you this not to pressure you but because I think you deserve to know exactly where I am standing so that whatever you decide, you are deciding with full information. The candle between them was almost gone. Just a small steady flame on a stub of wax, burning down to the last of itself. Abina looked at him for a long moment. She thought about 8 years. About flowers in a blue vase. About standing at windows. About the water cycle and the things that disappear and come back. About a little girl in a yellow dress who had done something extraordinary because she looked at her mother and decided, with the full fearless certainty of someone who does not yet know the world is supposed to be harder than this, that things could be better and that someone ought to do something about it. I know where you are standing, Abina said quietly. I have always known, Junho. That has never been the problem. Then what is the problem? He asked. She was quiet for a moment. Then, the problem is that knowing where you stand and trusting that you will stay standing are two different things. She looked at him directly. So that is what I need from you. Not grand gestures. Not speeches. Just staying. Every ordinary day. Just staying. I will stay, he said. No hesitation. No qualification. The same way he had said yes in the cafe. Like it was the simplest sentence he had ever spoken and also the most important. She held his gaze for a long moment. Then Amara reappeared from the back of the restaurant, yellow dress and good shoes and braids slightly askew from however she had been moving through the world in the last 5 minutes, and she stopped at the edge of the table and looked at both of them with those ancient knowing eyes. "Are you crying, Mommy?" she said. "No," Obina said, who was absolutely crying. Amara looked at Junho. "Did you make her cry?" "I think so," he said honestly. "But I believe in a good way." Amara studied her mother's face with great attention. Then she nodded, satisfied. She climbed back into her chair, picked up her fork, and looked between the two of them with the serene confidence of someone surveying the results of a project that has gone exactly as planned. "Good," she said. "I made a card for this too, but I left it at home because I didn't want to be too obvious." She paused. "It says welcome to our family. I drew all 3 of us again. I gave you a longer coat this time." Junho put both hands flat on the table and looked down at them for a moment. His jaw was tight. His eyes were doing things he could not currently control. When he looked back up, both Obina and Amara were watching him, one with steady, careful, beginning to open love, and one with the triumphant patience of a 7-year-old whose plan had just fully, completely, perfectly worked. "Thank you, Amara," he said. His voice was not entirely steady. "You're welcome," she said. Then she pointed at his plate. "You didn't finish your galbi. You should finish it. My mom says you don't waste good food." He picked up his chopsticks. Abina pressed her fingers over her smile. Outside the restaurant window Seoul blazed in the February dark, loud and relentless and indifferent as always. But at a corner table with white peonies and melted candles and a yellow-dressed girl eating the last of her bibimbap, something was being built. Quietly, carefully, with full knowledge of the cost and the risk and the extraordinary gift of a second chance that most people never get. Not a perfect family. Not a simple one. But a real one. The truest kind, built not from ideal circumstances but from love stubborn enough to survive absence, and brave enough, in the form of a 7-year-old girl with a crayon and a plan, to go out and find what it needed and bring it home. That is the thing about love, isn't it? It does not always arrive the way you planned it. It does not always look the way you imagined. Sometimes it arrives in a puffy pink coat on a cold Seoul street, with a handmade card and a red bean bun and absolutely no fear, and it taps the most dangerous man in the city on the arm and says, "Excuse me, sir, my mommy has never had a Valentine before." And it changes everything. If this story moved you, if you felt Abina's strength, Amara's courage, or Junho's long road back to the people he should never have left, share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Leave a comment telling us which character you connected with most. And if you have been watching Afro-Korean love tales and have not yet subscribed, this is your sign. Every story we tell is built on the same truth. This one ends on that love, real love, always finds a way home. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next one.